Hello, my name is James McLaughlin and I'm the editor of Car Design News, and I'm delighted to welcome you to this live stream. What does the luxury car interior of the future look like? Now, there are no doubt that consumer attitudes to luxury are changing. Want something to aspire to? The term luxury has connotations of excess and waste. Consequently, concerns about the environment mean that established luxury materials are under scrutiny from a buying public that demands a high-end experience without compromising on sustainability. OEMs are responding, experimenting with new materials, exploring ideas of circular design, upcycling, and technological innovation to reduce their carbon footprint. But crucially, how much are consumers prepared to forego for the sake of the environment? Is luxury design, a luxury interior, achievable, or is it a contradiction in terms? Is it possible to have the best of both worlds? Well, to help me explore some of those questions and more, Car Design News has brought together an expert panel of designers from a variety of OEMs and design houses, and they are Sarah Campagnolo, and she's the head of color and material design at Pininfarina; Carsten Monahan, who's the head of design at Ital Design; Connie Blom, interior design manager at Polestar; Nico Den Uden, chief commercial officer at E-Leather; and finally Matthias Jungens, head of BMW interior design. Guys, welcome to the webinar. Slowly, as you come into the room, one by one, they're trickling in. Now, great, lovely to have you all with us. Very, very privileged to have such an esteemed panel today. I'm going to start with you, Sarah. I think for the sake of getting the conversation going, perhaps we could get you to set out Pininfarina's vision, I suppose, or aspirations towards a luxury interior that is also sustainable. What does that mean to you?
Well, our vision is to be able to deliver an exquisite experience for our customers that can connect craftsmanship, extreme quality, beauty, and sustainability all in the same interior. And to us, that's a very, very important pillar of our Pura philosophy.
Wonderful. Connie, you're next.
I think you will see a more focused approach towards luxury, where you kind of focus on the important items, as reduction is going to be such an important part of how to move forward. So I think that's going to be like the key element to keep your eyes on.
Okay, reduction. Carsten, if I could ask you next, and we'll finish with Matthias.
Yes, maybe shortly, like we as Ital Design, we are working really worldwide on so many different customers, different industries. And so it goes from industrial design, product, user interface to transportation design. And this gives us a really wide range of possibilities to also see what luxury is about, because we work a lot of premium customers also. And we always say it's 360-degree design. So it is not about that luxury is status for us. For us, luxury is functional, and we can see it in all the products we're working on. And it's for the people, let's say. Bring the luxury to the people, we always say.
I like that. So a Ramsian view of luxury. Matthias, finally you.
Yeah, thanks, James. If you ask me, I think if we do it right, if we want to create a convincing future luxurious car interior, we have to blend all creative discipline into one breathtaking customer experience. And this will be led by the goals of sustainability. And we as designers are given the chance to create new visual codes for a sustainable and circular future.
And Nico, finally with you, I want to pick up something that Connie mentioned there about this idea of reduction. This is very much your bag at E-Leather. You are newcomers, I suppose, to the automotive world, but getting stuck in. I wondered if that resonated with you, this idea of reduction.
Absolutely, it definitely resonates with us. So we're coming from a background of utilizing what's already been used and trying to make sustainable solutions out of that. So not creating more new materials, but using what has been used already. Doing that in a sustainable way with a lower environmental footprint, and obviously the ultimate goal, getting to full circularity, being self-propelling circular from that perspective.
This idea of circular design, I mean, that's a key component of both Polestar and BMW. I mean, Polestar actually set out their 5 points to circular design, Connie. And I suppose I wonder how you sort of, are these universal truths, or are they sort of something that Polestar have kind of adapted and become these commandments?
Well, I think I think they're more leads. You know, how do we focus our attention in the right direction, and these 5 guidelines kind of direct us in a direction, but they're not like the universal truths, I don't think, because that needs to be explored. We need to find out. We need to understand what is possible and what is not possible, and what is effective and less effective. So I think it's the core idea of how we move forward.
A fundamental sort of a building block rather than the kind of absolute rigid, I suppose, parameters. Sarah, this idea of exquisite design that you mentioned at Pinin, which is something you guys are well known for, as we know, but I wondered, there is a question about sacrifice and compromise that is associated with ideas of sustainability. It doesn't necessarily always marry up that well with the idea of luxury. And I wondered what your take on that was, because we are experimenting with new materials, customers are demanding them, but how do we sort of reconcile those two ideas?
Well, I love this question, because if it was maybe 5 or 10 years ago, I would tell you, yes, we might have to sacrifice a little bit of beauty or quality in order to be more sustainable. But today, because of the technologies available, because of the science that we have, we really can marry up these two things and the best of both worlds without sacrificing craftsmanship, luxury, beauty, performance of the material. So it's really the right time to start connecting the two things together, I think.
Matthias, I know we've talked a little bit before we started about materials, and one of the projects you guys launched at IAA last year was the iVision Circular, which is this idea of very materialistically innovative, I suppose. But yeah, I suppose to put that same question to you, this idea of reconciling luxury and sustainability, how do you do it?
I'm totally convinced that sustainability and luxury should not go hand in hand with a sacrifice for the customer, of course. And you mentioned the BMW iVision Circular presented at the IAA last year. This car, very small footprint, urban concept, but it shows a very breathtaking materials, great space, some very, very cool features. At the same time, we are reducing components. We are taking care to use the right materials, and especially with care how to combine these materials, using monomaterials, avoiding glued pieces, and taking care about these connections. This is what makes circularity happen in the end. And yeah, the result is a car that you have to rethink it from ground up. But in the end, we created something that is 100% recycled and 100% recyclable, without any sacrifice in luxury for the customer.
I suppose probably wonders how scalable something like that is, and I suppose this is a question to all of you guys. You know, these one-off sort of experiments are you know, very, very challenging intellectual and material and innovative exercises, but you really need to be able to scale them up to make a serious impact. And maybe I'll start with you, Carsten, and I'll move around the panel. And Nico, I think you could probably jump in on this idea of mixed recycling materials, but starting with you, Carsten, if that's okay.
Yeah, I think no, I fully agree also with Matthias. It's super important to have this project, and this let's say lighthouse projects. Making show cars and concept cars are important to do this test. But I really come back to the point of again 360 degree. There is so much happening around in the world, and you really feel that this thing about material, precious material, what can we do for the customer, what really helps the customer, where he has an advantage from, happens all over the industry, for instance. And I like very much also to understand what is happening in the architecture, because there's also a lot of how materials will be recycled or reused, and will have maybe other physical possibilities to use them. So it's not only in automotive, no? But again, for us as designers, it's in German Königsdisziplin. We love to do the show cars and really to try the very special things in there.
Well, we love to see them as well, which is, I mean, I was despairing at one point that we may end up with just seeing concept cars launched in the virtual space only, but I'm pleased that there's still desire on this part of the designers. Actually, maybe I'll move to you, Sora, because you're also in the business of the concept car.
Well, I have to say, I think it is very scalable sustainability. We can look at other industries, sorry, like for instance, consumer electronics. There are big names out there, without making any names, that have demonstrated that they can actually profit from sustainability and recycling their own devices and involving the customers in this process. So I think it is very scalable, and automotive can really look at other industries, like for instance, again, consumer electronics or fashion, and really take an example on how to apply these strategies to our everyday work, I think.
Yeah, Nico, and just jumping back to you, Nico, as well, because I mean, I think touching on this idea of these mixed recycling ideas, that is often the problem, isn't it? That you get contamination when you try and disassemble something and recycle it.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot what we can learn from other industries as well. I think one of the things in my mind, I think where the automotive industry could benefit for, if I compare, for instance, with consumer markets, is agility to experiment and to test things faster. So concept cars are a nice concept, getting them displayed and things like that, but it takes years before they come to actual production and can start making an impact. If I take the work we've been doing with Nike over the years, where they've started to characterize material, get it on some small series production, and because they're launching every 3 months, they have another collection on the shelf in the shops. They can much faster adopt new technologies and implement them at scale. I think that's really critical, and I think where the automotive industry can benefit from as well. And I'm just thinking about limited edition, for instance, so getting from concept cars to limited editions, or some of the work referring to Connie or what Polestar is doing as well, where you're now starting to bring some interim upgrades to cars really focused on sustainability. I was reading interestingly the launch of the Polestar 2 and getting that transparency about sustainable technologies and bringing them to market much faster, I think is really what this industry needs.
There's a question across the board as well. I'll come back to you, Connie, in a minute on the concept, because I want to talk to you about the precept and the production precept, but maybe I'll come back to you, Matthias. What Nico was saying there was really interesting, but I wondered if you had any thoughts on that.
Yeah, let me touch on, especially on your question. You were asking like scalability of sustainable concepts, right, James?
Yes.
And I'm convinced if we do it right, yeah, we can reinvent the wheel always, but it starts with the small things. And I think I have a very good small example in mind that we realized in the BMW Group to serial production. So we all know recycling is about like limiting waste during the recycling process. And going into a monomaterial, that means like plastics built out of the same, so to say, plastic DNA, you can just recycle it, melt it, and produce something again. So if these two groups of plastics, they don't go hand in hand, you have waste in there, which is not good for recycling. So our experts realized that we had foot mats in place in the cars for many years, which consist of basically 4 functional layers. Delivered by tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 suppliers, not out of the same material. And with a bit of push and work, they managed it to have this all built by monomaterials. So our actual serial production foot mats are 100% recyclable, which is hardly visible, but a big step forward.
Yeah.
So you're asking about scalability. I think it starts sometimes very small, but this is the right way to go.
Interesting, and I think just coming back a little bit to you, Connie. Now, I'll mention what Nico was talking about, was learning from other industries and moving at speed from things like fashion and consumer electronics and things like that Sarah mentioned. But the precept is an interesting one because it was very much an exercise in material innovation, the concept car, and now you're taking it through to production. So this idea of scalability is an experiment you're going through, or I'm not sure when it's going to launch. I'm not even sure if you know when it's going to launch. But, I just wonder what some of the challenges were that you encountered from that, taking that step.
Well, of course, there's a lot of different challenges, but there was a huge focus on materials in different ways on that concept, and some of those we're taking into production for sure in the best way that it can be done at the moment. But you have to then, of course, realize that those new materials with new features put different demands on what you can do with the design and where you can place that design element. So of course there are challenges to understand how to best make use of those new materials as exposed, exclusive materials in the next generation cars. So there was a lot of fit and finish issues, max and mean radiuses and touch and feel. How do you make that material into something that feels premium and nice? So, I mean, that really defines the design in a way, the characteristics of the material. So a lot of challenges, but it's very exciting, I must say.
Well, I think on that point, and sticking with you, Connie, I think it's interesting for a brand like Polestar, who is, seems to be fairly a newcomer to the market, although it's kind of, born of Volvo. I wondered if it was easier in some ways for a company like yours to kind of to put these new ideas about what it constitutes a luxury material forward to your consumer, because you're dealing with perhaps a new demographic, or there are opportunities there to open a dialogue that maybe needs to shift in some more the legacy OEMs.
I think the main benefit that we have in comparison to established OEMs is heritage. And you can see that also in the Chinese markets, where there are brand new brands coming up, and they're kind of free to set their own scene for their own benefit. And I think that's a benefit that we also have, that we don't have a heritage, we don't have anything. We have a link to Volvo, which is quite strong, but we don't necessarily need to lean on what Volvo has done in respect of what is luxury. They have their type of luxury and their type of customers, which are different. So I think that was the main benefit, that we kind of can see it from a blank canvas.
Wonderful. So I'm moving to you as well, because I know you worked on the Batista project, and that's a very thrilling hypercar, incredibly fast. I do have, I mean, on a very basic level, is it possible to make a luxury hypercar, a sustainable hypercar, should I say? I mean, this is obviously pulling in, historically we've pulled in two different directions, but I'm curious about that. And I'm also curious about what we mentioned earlier about taking materials and moving them forward into a new project. So maybe there's a couple of things for you to get back to.
I think Batista was a unique opportunity for us as designers, but I think for the entire company, because it's a bridge between the past and the future. And we always like to say that we have the tradition of innovation. So for us, traditional luxury has been rethought with new technologies and available new technologies today. And it's really important for us as well to take care of the waste we are producing while we're making Batista, and trying to transform that into new materials that we want to use when we're going to expand our portfolio. So that's a very, very important topic for us right now that we're focusing on.
And just moving on to the sort of the future work that Pennon are doing, I was interested by this idea that some of the kind of byproducts, I suppose, or offcuts, if you like, from Batista may be finding their way into the next project. I wonder if you could speak a little bit about that, because I think it's quite interesting.
I can't say too much, you can imagine why, but for instance, you have a lot of waste when you trim an interior with leather. I'm sure everybody knows that is a huge issue in our industry. So we're trying to find a way to use that offset, that offcuts, in a way that beautifies, that dignifies the material, and can be re-put into production in the products to come.
Excellent, excellent. And I think we'll move on to materials in a minute. I think we'll close this one with Nico, because that idea of using waste products is very much your brand DNA, I'd say.
Yeah, so that's definitely within our DNA, and obviously, as Sarah has explained, that's very much what we're trying to do as well. Looking at an industry which is from the offset quite wasteful, a lot of material ending up in landfill or being incinerated, and trying to use that as part of creating something new of it is in the legacy of our company. And it's quite interesting as well how consumer opinion have changed over the years. When we introduced the material, because we're doing this for the last 15 years already, when we introduced the material 15 years ago, the DNA was there, but nobody was really interested in it. It was all around performance, cost of ownership, durability, all the usual decision criteria to select the material when we introduced in the aviation industry. And it's quite interesting to see over the years, and especially in the more recent times, how that has changed, and how people are starting to consider and making it important to reuse materials. Wanted to pick up on a point Matthias made earlier as well. I think there's quite a number of case studies now around monomaterials and recyclability of that, and that's obviously a good step in the right direction. But I think the holy grail for the whole industry, I think, is starting to look at mixed materials and how you can make and upgrade those to materials which can be used in future car designs as well. And that's really where a lot of our R&D work is focused on for the future, not just looking at clean mono type of materials, which are still limited from that perspective, but looking more at mixed sources of material and creating materials out of that.
Wonderful, thanks, Nico. Just Carsten, picking up on something Connie said there about, or mentioned, talking about the similarities between a new brand like Polestar and the similarities with the Chinese market. I know that you guys have done a collaboration with Dongfeng, the Voya car, and I was curious about that and how that collaboration sort of shaped your understanding of designing for a market that's new, that's fresh, and has probably bring ideas about what constitutes luxury.
Yeah, that's one of the really nice projects and challenging, because we started with a company, Dongfeng, with a white paper, let's say, and we created with them together the new brand Voya. It's their premium brand, luxury brand. So they wanted also a product from us that is really absolutely amazing, nice to look at, fits the brand DNA. And so we were talking everything through with them together, understanding what are the core values of the brand. And then this also goes down to the values about how you transport premium luxury with the shapes also, and with the material, and also with the user interface. And so we had the chance to do the full interior, and now the second one also, and now we will go hand in hand with this company. What was nice on this project was that we could also think about how the customer is using it. So about the premium experience entering in the car and using the car. So for instance, for this GT, we decided to do a 3-seater layout with a very high-end possibility of using it for relaxation or traveling. So we started not by the material or what is the classical luxury, we started by the layout and what can we do for the user, for the people.
Matthias, moving on to you, this idea of not just materials, but the layout can inform a kind of and shape a luxury experience. Is that something that BMW are experimenting with or looking at?
Your question is if the interior layout is like setting the level for a luxury experience? Yes, of course, it has always done. Yeah, for sure. And I'm totally convinced that the proportion of exterior footprint compared to interior footprint will grow in favor of the interior. So our future customers, we all see that cars evolve. We are at these paradigm shifts, and customers have more and more needs towards their space, towards their mobile space. And like having a bit more interior freedom, space, roominess, something that is uplifting and something that gives you quality of life, a good place to talk to your friends and family, or I just mentioned the power of choice, just to watch a movie, to work, or to even nap. This is all things in the future that will happen in car interiors. So interior layout and interior space is king.
I think
very
you mentioned,
important.
you mentioned as we spoke before about this idea, the paradigm shift, and then you quickly moved on to this idea of the cars being boutique hotels on wheels, which was quite an appealing idea for me. But I wondered to the rest of the panelists, maybe starting with you, Connie, this idea of this multifunctional space and how close we are, I suppose, to realizing some of these ideas.
That is a tricky one to answer because that is so, no, but it's so technology based. It's not a design driven issue, you know, with all the technology that needs to be in place for cars to drive like this. You need to have the right infrastructure and, you know, being able to take care of old cars as well as new cars. So that is a super hard question to answer, but it's an exciting one. And I think you will see probably a greater variety of, you know, who will focus on the lounge experience, who will focus more on a traditional car and maybe more on a sportier performance car, depending on customer wants and needs. I think that's going to broaden. It will be different use cases in a way that it hasn't been before, that you bought a car that sort of provided you with all your needs, and that's going to probably change, I think, in the future.
So you think it might become a little bit more specialist, or the cars themselves will have to be more versatile within a sense?
No, I think you'll have to go more specialist. I think you will have cars which are more like the pods, or, you know, this interior luxury space that travels and gives you a fantastic experience. But I think the need for other types of transportation, which are more classical and maybe other ways of using your car that we haven't seen yet, will, you know, appear. And you can just see it on how people are today using electric kick bikes everywhere in towns. You wouldn't have guessed that years ago. So for sure, it's gonna diversify, I think, the uses of automobiles.
I suppose following on from that, maybe I'll put this to you, Sarah, is this idea of if we're going to have these kind of more specialized projects, is it a case of designing for different generations? Is that how you can approach that, or is this something, or is it different?
For sure, customer demand is changing, and it's going to drive our output as designers. And customers are more educated, informed, and demanding. So all of these will have a huge impact. For us, we really focus on the personalization of the experience and the car itself. For instance, with Battista, we have more than 128 million possibilities, combination that you can have within your interior. For instance, for us, it's a big focus, the bespoke and the personalization, so that every single vehicle we produce is going to feel really personal and unique to the customer.
Matthias, moving back to you, and then probably over to Carsten. But I'm interested in this idea of how many million possibilities. I can't remember, Sarah, but it was a lot. 120. But I'm maybe putting it a slightly different spin on it. Does BMW see a quieter, less sort of diverse experience, I suppose, a more pared back, perhaps, or are you exploring all sorts of kind of weird and wonderful ideas as well?
If I get you right, you're asking, are we up for 128 million possibilities, or rather less?
Or is that too many?
Let me put it like that: to make your space, to make your car something individual is key. It's very important. It needs to be your baby on a digital and on an analog side, for sure. Personally, I feel that we also have to support our customers in their choices to a certain extent. How can you make sure that the one choice that I'm just taking here out of 128 million is really the right one for me? So I'm convinced that sometimes less choices can lead you to a very satisfying result as well. I'm not saying we are limiting here possibilities. To create something that is highly individual is key. But today we all feel it. Customers take their decisions faster and in a different way, and we see it all in the competition. Hey, you get the color, you get this car in 3 or 4 exterior colors. That's it. Choose one, Henry Ford style. So
no, yes.
We have to think about this again in our industry. How much choice is freedom, and when do we step over that it's even intimidating? If that answers your question.
I think that's a very interesting point, which I'll just throw it to Carsten. I'm gonna bastardize Mies van der Rohe and say less choice is more. Or is that Dieter Rams? I can't remember. It was one of those two architects and designers. But do you sort of share Matthias's view of the tyranny of choice? I suppose I phrase it.
Yes and no. I mean, we are working really with worldwide so many different customers, and it's really interesting to enter in the story of everybody to really understand where they want to go, where they feel, and where they think the future is. And it is nice to go with them this path, let's say. But most of the time, I see that companies really want to explore and try make new things, and it is not so much about reduction of the product. It is more about reduction really to find the right material and also to reduce to the right thing. No? So not to have the most is the best. No? And I think also with the new technology we have, and also where Sarah was talking about, we are in an amazing time and possibility to try these things and to find interesting materials that could be also a mix between like a traditional and a super modern one, combined with technology, touch, feel. So there are a lot of things going on. So for us as designers, it's really an amazing time, let's say, to work. No? On the other hand, I think, and there I admire very much the young generation. I mean, we work a lot with students, also have connections to the universities. These guys are really strong. I mean, this generation now is telling us also how to see things different, no? And maybe how reduction can be also nice and cool. So I like very much always these discussions and to exchange. No? So I think there is a lot of opportunities, and now maybe going back to the field of luxury, there will not be reduction. There will be interesting new things coming.
Interesting. And I think that was one of my questions I had down, was to talk about the idea of sustainability and luxury, and those two ideas and how they were changing the role of the designer. And also I thought, how much of the sustainability question is left for designers to solve, and how much of it is beyond your powers? Maybe I'll start with you, Sarah. I'll move to Nico, and then Connie, and then Matthias, and then finally.
I think designers have the responsibilities to inspire other people, because we are the creative part of companies normally. We must inspire our colleagues to look beyond what's done today and to find new solutions, to try to do better, to work harder, and find, again, better solutions to today's problems. And so, again, I feel like we need to be inspirators for the rest of the team.
Connie, inspirers?
Yeah, I think that's totally true. But also, you need to work a lot more in close collaboration with engineering and developers in order to understand what it requires to get these things to work together. Because in history, we've designed something, and engineering side have tried to solve and build up the structures needed for us to get our A surface and the softness and so forth. But now we need to work more as a team to understand how we can, in the most efficient way, achieve what we want in the most important places.
Matthias, moving on to you.
Totally agree with you, Connie. Design more than ever is a team discipline. And to answer your question, James, I think designers can play a key role in this transition towards a sustainable future. For example, when we started the BMW iVision Circular, the team and we stepped first into one of these end-of-life places where old cars go to, and where people like take them apart, and they have been for the metal, a bin for foams, and you realize that these guys just have like 90 seconds to dismantle the complete seat. And this kept us thinking, so how can we take care of that, of this end of life and easier recyclability? So it was sure we had to redesign and rethink the seat build-up and how we connect upper and top material and foams together. And I think this is a classical discipline where we as designers can drive for maximum innovation and create something that is really propelling these steps towards sustainability.
Nico, I'm going to move to you now. I know I'm just thinking about the new ideas coming in from younger talent, younger designers, and how they are.
I see. Obviously, I'm in line with what Connie and Matthias are saying as well. I think it is, designers are playing a key role in this whole journey, but I feel as well that the supply chain needs to be aligned as well and working together on those ideas. And it's interesting that Connie mentions the engineering part at the early stage to get involved in it as well, because there's lots of great ideas, new technologies available, but how feasible are they? Because ultimately the consumer is not going to sacrifice on that premium touch and feel, the haptics and things like that. So you need to consider all of those factors together to move forward and to get to more sustainable designs, and bringing all parties together at an early stage, I think, is critical to success.
Yes. Before I move on, does anyone want to jump in on that? Or
well, I think if you allow me, that I agree that collaboration is key, and doesn't only involve the inner team, like you guys were saying, like engineers, but as well partners, suppliers, and as Nico was saying, supply chain is really fundamental. So everybody needs to have the same mindset and attitude toward the sustainability to be able to all work together. So I agree, that's very, very important.
I'm curious as to how this new this idea is this changing the role of a designer? I mean, you're all fairly sort of you're not the elder statesmen and the women of design. You're sort of you're still kind of at the cutting edge of it. And I wondered, how much has the role of a designer changed? You're talking about supply chains and kind of ethical sourcing and materials. Is this how new is this, and how much will it be needed to sort of integrate into things like design education?
Yeah.
If you're asking me,
I'll stick with you, Sarah, and then we'll move to the other guys. But yeah, seeing as you're.
Yes, I think it's really important, and I think it needs to be integrated in education, because without the knowledge, without being able to discuss again with suppliers, with engineers, you will never be able to move forward any of your ideas. So that's very, very important. You can't just do a nice sketch and move on. So yes, super important today.
Okay. Connie?
No, I couldn't agree more, and I think
totally
actually,
agree with that.
Yeah, and I think actually, if you look at the universities and things, it's already starting to happening. They do combined programs where engineering and design are working together already to find new solutions to problems. So I think that's going to be a natural development.
A natural shift. That's interesting. I also wanted to talk a little bit about, before I move on actually to everyone watching, please put your questions in the chat. There are lots coming through, and I will shortly start putting them to the panel. But if you've got don't be shy. I won't name you if you don't want me to. And I think the other thing I'd just like to touch on briefly is this idea of the user experience. We've sort of touched on it briefly in various different guises, but I wonder, can the user experience inform ideas around sustainability, or these two different things? The reason I ask is it's become such a prevalent part of every single car design. We've got user experience teams integrated in design departments. I know that that's done at Volvo. It's not true everywhere, but it is gradually, increasingly becoming the case. So I wonder, maybe I'll start with you, Carsten, and I'll move around and finish with Sarah.
Good, fine. Maybe so. I'm coming back to a very simple point. The user interface is there, that it's the interface between the machine and the person. No? So it just has to work. This is, I mean, if we achieve this, it's the best ever, and it's the best luxury experience ever. If you go in your car, or you book your car, or you do a shared ride, and you just go there, and it's a very, very just well and very good experience. Now, the problem we still have today, that a lot of things are just not working. Also between brands, for instance, us trying different cars, or you take a rental car and so on, is just sometimes a nightmare. No? So we still have very, very long way to go. And but we always have to think about the future. And I mean, there we as designers working on the ideas, how the journey is looking like of a customer, what he needs, what not. There comes into play again very much the different nationalities. No? So the user in the States is using his car completely different than maybe somebody in the UK, or maybe in Asia or Germany. So as designer, we have to adapt to this, understand the needs, and then try to find really good solutions. With us all the time, the engineers, ergonomic guys were helping us to find good solutions. No? But again, in the end of the day, the user interface and the HMI just has to work perfectly in a seamless way, and then we are far ahead and we managed it. Yeah, but today not yet there.
No, I know a few people who'd agree with you on that. Actually, I'll jump into the audience questions actually, because there's one here that's relevant to this, and this is from Dimitri. He says, and I'll put this to you, Matthias, if that's okay. Today, premium luxury and UX seems to be synonymous with the big screen. Will it still be the case tomorrow? It's an ongoing debate. Have we reached peak screen, or is there going to be is that going to continue?
Very good question. I'm convinced, first of all, as Carsten, as you stated before, that geometry design and user interface design, it will go more and more hand in hand. This is our only way to a really holistic customer experience. And then Dimitri, thanks for your question. Is it the big screen that counts? I'm personally convinced that these black glass surfaces in the car interiors we will leave that behind sooner or later. We will see new interfaces, interfaces that rather basically where you have all the intelligence of your car at your fingertips, but interfaces that just appear as interfaces when you need them and when you want them. Otherwise, this technology just retracts, it steps back and creates a surrounding, an interior that rather reminds you of your home, of your nice apartment or a boutique hotel where you just find peace of mind. So I'm sure in the next years we'll see some breathtaking next steps into new interfaces and new ways to enjoy media, enjoy movies, and enjoy work. We are hopefully not bound so long anymore for black glass holes that are everywhere in the interior. There's this danger of a tech overload, and it's only intelligent reduction that helps us to do a quality step ahead.
This reduction theme is recurring. I think I'm going to go over to Connie now. The black mirror is its days numbered?
The black mirror.
Oh, the black screen. It's a phrase.
I think you know, everything has its peak, and probably screens have. This is probably one of the first opportunities of reducing to what you actually need, because yeah, I just think most of the time you're traveling in a car and you enjoy the view more than you enjoy the screens. But we'll see what happens.
We'll see. Question, Sarah, I'll go with you on the screen question, and I'll take some more audience questions because they're really actually starting to pile in. There's some good ones here. So yes, opinions.
Sure.
Take.
We have a very minimalistic approach. Our team had this very minimalistic approach to technology in Battista. So the technology is there, is the best of the best, but it's only available when you need it. Otherwise, it doesn't interfere with your experience, as Connie was saying. So if you want to look at the landscape or just look how fast you're going with your car, you totally can do that. And then when you need the technology, it's available to you in the best and seamless way possible.
Great stuff. Thank you. So
maybe to add to that as well, some learning from other industries. So if you think about the aviation industries and you go a few years back, everybody was introducing personal video screens, and every generation they were getting bigger and bigger. And you start to see the opposite now. You start to see them being removed from aircraft again, and people starting to use their personal devices during their flights. And that might be something which could I've read some in the automotive industry as well. There's some projects already where you look at integrating personal device as part of screen usage rather than having something fixated within the car.
Actually, sticking with you, Nico, because this is a materials question. I think I know what the answer will be, but what do you think the materials will be for the car, luxury car interior of the future? Currently, it's recycled plastics or bio-based material, but I suspect you'll probably say it's e-leather is the future.
That would be the obvious answer, but let's go back to the poll Car Design News did in LinkedIn leading to this seminar, and I think 50% of the respondents basically said that the material of the future has to be based on recycled material. There's abundant waste within the world, and that's what really should drive our thought process about new materials for the future rather than creating more and more new materials.
Great, thank you, Nico. This is quite a long question, but I think it's an interesting one. This is from Angelo. With the internet and easy access to information, customers are more educated than ever and their minds can change quickly. How is this affecting your material selection, and what is your role, most efficient path in educating and marketing luxurious, sustainable materials? Who haven't I asked a question of recently? Carsten, perhaps, and then Matthias, or either of you. I'm happy either of you could take that one. Maybe Carsten.
Yeah, it's a interesting question. When I got it wrong, also now got it right. Sorry, but I think it's about the fast living. What we are seeing in the moment, that also, especially for instance, if you look to the China market, it is very, very pushing forward, never seen before, and really trying the boundaries and trying to find a new thing. So if the customer is living in this world and is used to get all this new input and wants to have the fast changes, it's a good question what we do with a product, no? But it could also, like, it's just it's an idea that we maybe then go more to reduction. So the car and the interior and the car is more like it's the way to transport and to support the client, and he can do whatever and adjust and live in there how he would like to. So you have the customers who don't want so much and the others who want a lot, and maybe this is the point where we have to start how we can adjust to this.
I think it does come back actually to this idea of choice and changing types of choice and multiple choices, I suppose, Matthias, which is something you touched on earlier. Another question from the audience, and this is for you, Connie, actually directed to Polestar. Can you explain how you guys think? What do you think about using vegan material?
Well, we have a vegan version, as I recall it. So, I mean, we see that as one way of making changes, of course, towards what the customer are expecting. So, I mean, I don't have a special preference on that. I think we try to use the best materials we can find to get the expression we want in the interior. And then if it's vegan based or if it's textile based, or, you know, it doesn't really make a big difference on the design. It should always appear the same anyway.
Matthias, what about you on the vegan question? I spoke to a designer once who told me he didn't like it because it was full of plastic, but I wasn't well, I wasn't so sure. Maybe you could give BMW
just I think if you just choose the material because of a term, I'm not sure if we're doing right here. Of course, it's about reducing the carbon footprint. And we all know that traditional cow leather is not the most intelligent choice as it appears today. So we have to find substitutes. But as soon as the customer feels he's sitting in a plastic chair, as you put it, we have done something wrong. So it is very important that we take care of these questions and that we take care of sustainability and carbon footprint, of course. And at the same time, now we're challenged as designers to create new materials and new aesthetics for these new surroundings that appear here.
Yes, the idea of the new aesthetic being shown. I mean, that's often how, you know, we look about modernist movements were shaped by the you know, fast pouring concrete and that shaped architecture. Material innovation often informs our, the aesthetics and the architecture around us.
Yeah, it comes back to the previous question as well, right? Vegan and sustainability are often being used in the same sentence, and it's really understanding what the consumer really means and what he's looking for. There's different answers for different problems, and I think that's where transparency in choice and you mentioned Angela's question earlier about consumers being more and more educated, I think will play into that for brands going forward as well, being transparent about what you're doing and the claims being made.
Thank you, Nico. This is one for you, Sarah, because I know you've got a background in fashion, but it's actually one of my assistant editor, Freddie, spotted Elo's handbags and sneakers in the background, trainers in the background. But he wondered, maybe I'll put it to you, Sarah, because you hail from this fashion background. Could you speak on the crossover between luxury wear, high-end fashion, and what's going on in the automotive interior?
Well, I think especially high-end fashion has been a big driver of change and has inspired a lot of change also in our industry. So to me, the two industries can be really connected and exchange knowledge. And for us, this is a very strong concept, like the collaboration with colleagues within the industries, but also with other industries is very, very important. It's the only way we have to progress and make change for the better, I think.
Great, thank you, Sarah. I have this. This is a question I think is very pertinent. I'm not sure if it's a question that designers can answer, but I think it's worth asking you. Are customers prepared to pay more for sustainable products or materials, or do they only talk about sustainability but choose differently when purchasing a car? I think it is. There are always great differences between what people say they're going to do and what they actually do. Who should I start with? I wonder, Connie, I could start with you. I think that one could go to everyone.
I think in the luxury market, it's more likely that the customers will buy what they ask for, because maybe the financials is not the driving factor for them. But if you look at mass market cars, of course, it will be a different thing. That's for sure, I think.
Interesting. Matthias?
It's really interesting, and as you say, we have to divide the look at like high-end and mass markets. The story is oh, sorry, I just had to ask someone else. I step in a minute. I had a good thought on that.
Okay.
I can just evolve a little bit on, like, if people with money who wants to spend money on things, they will buy a wristwatch for hundreds of thousands, and then they will spend a lot of money just servicing that watch because it needs it, because it's a mechanical piece. And if you don't have that money, it's not any in your scope of view, and that comes the same thing with this, really, that if you've got the finances, you don't care if you have to reupholster the car within 3 years. You could live with that. I think that's the difference.
I think it does touch the question about affordability. Have you remembered
my thought back again?
Amazing.
Yes, I remembered finally. Sorry for that. I want to say it's about storytelling, right? It has sustainability, has to do with connoisseurship. And you have to be convinced to do something. You want to be convinced to drive that car, and then you're maybe willing to pay a little more. but you have to be able to read the story and tell the story also to your friends. So it's something that people today do because they're convinced of it. And we as designers, we have to help people read the story, understand it in detail, and being able to tell it to the world because it's a good story.
I'm gonna, gosh, there's so many questions coming in, guys, and so I'm gonna put some more to you. Katie has asked how the increase of technology in the interior of vehicles has impacted budget available for luxury materials, which I think is quite an interesting one, because we do see much more tech even at very low end cars. Who could I ask? Not even sure, to be honest. Carsten, maybe I could put that one to you. Is the increased onus on technology having an impact on specifying sort of luxury materials, sustainably luxury materials?
No, I would not say. This is a little bit like a thing that goes parallel. So again, like a luxury experience is something that is 360 degree, that you feel when you get in the car, use the car, travel, or maybe short. So it is nothing that speaks against each other. No? We just have to be, for the technology part, we really have to push to stay like also as fast as, for instance, industrial design or maybe the IT companies are going. We have to keep up with the car business to go in the same speed. No? Because this is the thing, what's happening. The customer comes with his own device, and then he wants that the car works the same way. No? And there you have the premium experience or not. No? So.
Just this question it just goes back a little bit to what we were talking about in terms of what financial consumer power, I suppose. And I wondered if it is true that you know, do you see sustainable materials moving their way down the sort of food chain into mass market or mass mid-segment EV cars in the near future, and how would that impact automotive design? Because once I suppose something becomes ubiquitous, it is no longer luxury. So we have to sort of consistently redefine. Maybe I could ask you, Sarah, about that, and perhaps we could move on.
I think that as with many other things, luxury can be an enabler to develop these technologies and making them available to the mass market. So it will trickle down to mass market, becoming more available, more affordable, and then something else will become luxury. So it's all part, I think, of the cycle of the product, I guess. But it's a really good opportunity to make some new technologies available at the mass market level.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I suppose that's the idea of high fashion trickling down to the high street in some ways.
Right. Yes.
Would anyone like to jump in on that? There are lots more questions, and I'm conscious we have been going an hour, and okay, just bear with me.
I wanted to make one comment about the earlier question.
Please do.
Cost and are consumers willing to pay more for it or not for more sustainable materials? And it reminds me to a study which I was reading about not so long ago from Asahi Kasei, where they were looking at what the definition of sustainability, and where in the past it was all around drivetrain technology to become more sustainable within the automotive industry. It's shifting now, and about 50% of the respondents were talking about the type of materials being used for the interior become part of the sustainable journey as well. And when they continued to ask the question, there was 25% of respondents within their study, and this was a cross-section between the US, Germany, and China, who were even willing to pay more for sustainable solutions within their car. And I found that quite interesting, because typically that's not the type of answer you would expect in the automotive world.
Yeah, that is interesting. Guys, I think we just run over the hour. There are lots more questions, but I think I'm conscious that we should probably wrap it up. So maybe I could ask you in turn, Carsten, no, Matthias, we'll start with you, but just final thoughts, basically. Maybe your elevator pitch, or perhaps your kind of one-liner about the future of luxury and sustainability. Matthias, you
yeah, I think, yeah. I mean, just speaking just speaking about the materials, I mean, the sustainable materials have to become the today's normal. No? So it has to be to the simplest product. We have to do it because of also CO2 reduction and so on and so on. No? It's also something that the customer is really asking for. But I'm really looking forward, and I've found the title very interesting of the discussion today. What will be the new luxury? And I mean, we saw also during the discussion today that it's not only about materials; it's about the experience you have. No? And this is extremely important to push there to really make a product. It can be a coffee machine, a bike, a car, a plane that really works for the customer. And this is our aim as designer.
Matthias, you're next.
I fully agree to Carsten here. It's about creating this customer-centric experience. That this is what counts also in the future luxurious world. And as we heard today, sustainability is playing a key role, but it won't be the ecological visual aspects of the 90s that we all know. And we are at a very exciting point in time. We as designers can shape this future towards circularity.
And Connie?
No, yeah, I think the same, that we're in a great transition period, and it's going to be exciting to be part of this, to work with all the different categories of people trying to achieve this modern society where we actually take care of everything that we use.
And finally, Sarah, last word.
I couldn't agree more with my colleagues. It's a very exciting time, and it's really good that we're having these conversations, that people want to know more and demand more from us as well. I really like to be challenged from our customers, and I really love that we're talking about this and we're doing our best.
Good show. Okay, well, I think we've overrun a little bit, but I think it was worth it. I just thank you so much for all of you for joining me and Car Design News for this live stream. Thank you to Carsten, Matthias, Connie, Sarah, and of course Nico. We've got another one coming up in about a month, I think, and it's called Back to the Future of Interiors. We stole that kind of from the Michael J. Fox film, but that will be celebrating 20 years of Interior Motives, our interior design magazine, which is coming back in a print form this year. But for now, thank you so much to everyone, and thank you for everyone who put their questions forward. I'll try and collate them and send them on to the guys. Maybe if they find time, they can answer them. But from now, I think that's all we have time to. Thank you very much.
Good. It's a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Gosh.